You're the king, and nothing's more important than you. Come on, fill that comment section. You're the king, and you're invited. You're the king, you're in control. You're the king, and you're invited. Now, Father, your Spirit is already here. So that means our hearts are conditioned and postured for you to speak to us now. We're open enough so that what you say can make an imprint on us, so that we won't be hearers of the word only, but we'll be doers of the word. Thank you for the gospel. Thank you for the soul-saving, life-changing, mind-freeing power of the gospel. Thank you that you use the foolishness of preaching to confound the wise. Have your way in this moment, we pray. Say what we need you to. In Jesus' name, amen and amen. I don't know about you, but I'm glad that the Lord accepts an invitation whenever somebody says that he's welcome. Whenever somebody is bold enough to open their hearts, to open their lives to the throne and the presence of God, I love that he never makes a mistake. I love that he never walks away. He never stands you up. But if you want to be in his presence, he will honor that. Would you do me a huge favor? Would you celebrate God in the comments for our senior pastor, the one and only Bishop Virgil D. Patterson Sr.? I need you to show him some love. I need you to celebrate God like you're grateful that we have a leader after God's own heart. Come on. I want you to honor him and love him like you're grateful for his deposit, for his prayers, for his teachings, for his instruction, for his care for us. We honor God for our pastor. And would you keep that love going in our virtual sanctuary for Pastor Geraldine Patterson? Come on. Who continues to serve with everything that's in her to make sure that we are moving forward in the plan of God. We serve great leadership and excited for them and excited about where God is taking us through them. And I want to pause because I want you to know that my experience and time in church, haven't had a whole lot of time here on the earth, but I have been afforded a lot of deep experiences, and one of those is experience in church. It is most of all that I know. I've spent my entire life in church and observing church culture and church behavior. And one of the things that I've noticed is that it is not common, unfortunately, for churches to not just see their young people, but then to trust them enough to allow them to go forth in ministry. It is actually uncommon to see what we see here. In many spaces, there's this belief that you haven't done enough yet. You haven't earned enough stripes. We don't like the music you choose, and we don't like the changes you make. And so they say we value you, but space is not created for two things: for discipleship and then for deployment. Discipleship is, are you growing as an individual in God? Deployment is, have you been given space to explore your gifts and callings? So on behalf of the young adult department, I want to thank our leadership for loving God enough and loving us enough to care for our souls and then to give us a space every month, watch this, to fail, to try things that didn't work out, to do stuff that don't make no sense at the onset, because they want us to grab hold of the calling of God on our lives. And I don't want it to go by without us saying thank you for trusting us. So to Bishop and Pastor Jerry, thank you all. Thank you for loving us and trusting us enough to serve for 3 years now. I hope we make you proud. It is an interesting spot being a young preacher. It's an interesting spot being a young leader. And as I sought what I would preach about on our 3rd year anniversary, what I would share with my fellow young adults who are trying to figure it out just like me, I realize that oftentimes as a leader, the Lord sends you through things that even though they are for your life, they don't stop at your life. Many people want to be leaders, but they don't want the price tag that comes with leadership. And one of the price tags that comes with leadership is that God will often send you through advanced testing and trials that you may think have no place or that you don't deserve. But the point is, you can't minister to them if you have not gone through in a similar way like them. So God has a way, when you lead anything, of isolating you in certain things that you realize weren't just for you, but they were so that you could go ahead of or alongside the people who God has assigned you to. And then you can be able to come back like Joshua and say, I've been to the promised land. I would imagine if we interviewed Bishop and Pastor Jerry, the reason why their anointing is what it is not just because of their prayer life. It's not just because of their scriptural study. It's not just because of their kind hearts, but it is because they've been tried by fire. And they have decided that instead of becoming bitter, instead of asking why these trials have come into my life, I've realized that it was done to me, but for you. So my assignment on our 3-year anniversary is to share from my experience something that you might be going through too. I've come as your big brother to get you today. Come to pull you out of some stuff that I know all too well what it's like to be in. 2 Corinthians, the 10th chapter. Second Corinthians 10, verse 3 through 5. Apostle Paul says, for though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. Though I live in a physical body, I don't just pursue physical things. My concern, my pursuit, my struggle is not just about what's going on in my body. Verse 4, which is where we will focus our time today. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. Verse 5, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought, somebody say every thought to the obedience of Christ. For the weapons of our warfare, the things that we use to make it, the things that we use to fight, the things that we use to survive, the things that we use to navigate chaos, the things that we use to make sense out of life, they are not carnal, but in fact, they are mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. I'd like to preach to you from the subject, I have a word for your dark place. Let's spend some time. I want to share with you a word for your dark place. If you exist in a reality where everything is happy, happy, joy, joy, I'm not preaching to you. If you live where everything is sunshine and rainbows, this is not your Sunday. I'll come to you at another day. If you live at a space where you've never been antagonized in your heart and in your mind and in your emotions and in your soul, then this message is not for you. If you find faith to be easy, if you always find your way back to center, to an optimistic perspective, then this word is not for you. But if there is ever, or if there is any young adult watching me that says, I'm saved, but I know what it is to be in a dark place. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ, but I know what it is to be in a dark place. I'm preaching to the person that says, I've got kids, but they don't see it, but I'm in a dark place. I'm cooking dinner, but I'm in a dark place. I've come to speak to every manager that says, I sit in meetings and they can't even tell that I'm not there, but I'm here and not here at the same time. I've come to preach to the person that finds it hard to wake up in the morning. You stay up all night, and then when you finally do sleep, it seems like you don't want to wake up when you finally do wake up. I've come to preach to the person that says, I've struggled with what it is to get out of the bed because I know what it is to be in a dark place. I've come to preach to somebody who knows what it is to have months go by and say, where did the time go? I don't feel feel like myself. I feel like the walking dead. My routine is still my routine, but I don't feel like I'm even present. I've come to preach to the person, have you ever struggled with the dark place and said the sun is shining on the outside, but it's pitch black on the inside? I want to preach to the people who've ever dealt with a dark place. Who've ever dealt with a dark place. Have you ever sat up thinking? Have you ever been moved to do something that you used to love and it don't even feel like you love it anymore because it's a dark place? And team, I find it interesting that we always want to preach, Bishop, for the shout. But the problem is, I grew up shouting. And I shouted in church. But between my shout on Sunday and 7 o'clock Sunday night, I left the praise break and went back to my couch in the darkness. And no one ever preached to me to help me understand, what do you do with a dark place? Tithing in a dark place. Married in a dark place. Getting your degree in a dark place. And can I tell you that for many of us, we look at our lives, and have you ever had a moment where you look back at the last few months and say, I don't even know how I did all that. I don't even know how the kids are still being woken up and taken to school. I don't even know how these bills are still being paid. I don't even know how I managed to accomplish all this in a dark place. And so we need to have a framework and a posture and some ideas for what do you do? How do you navigate the dark place? Family, one of the things that I've realized is that when you're in front of people, and specifically when you serve in leadership or in any kind of capacity where you're responsible for other people, you live seeing and noticing and observing those other people. Right? So if you are a parent, then you live knowing everything there is to know about your children. You study them. You know their habits. You know their behaviors. You know the things that they do. You know their signals. It's the same thing. When you're a manager, you know your employees. You know how they deal with things. If you're somebody who's a caretaker, you know the person that you're taking care of. If you're somebody who serves in ministry, you know the people around you. But then the problem with that is over time you forget that while you observing them, they observing you too. We think that because we are older than the kids can't see nothing about us. We think that because we're anointed, the people that we cover can't see us. And Pastor Jerry, I had this moment where I realized that I was not as invisible as I thought. And I have some friends who I trust who are in my safe space, and they all begin to tell me the same thing. They said, Princeton, you do this thing where mid-conversation, you start staring. And it's the weirdest thing, because you go from yelling and screaming and all this extroversion, and then there's this huge pause. You do it in person, you do it when we talk to you on the phone, and by the time the fourth or fifth person told me, I said, maybe I'll do that. And they all asked, hear me, the same question. They said, where do you go? The answer to that is, I go to a Princeton place. I can't even describe it to you because I just have to take you there so you can see it. I go to a Princeton place. I go away from the moment to process, to deal, to think about whatever's happening, to try to come back to my world with a solution. Is there anybody like me? And every now and then you'd be sitting trying to do something. You was washing clothes, and next thing you know, 10 minutes had gone by, and you was just, where did you go? Refreshing, where did you go? Contextually speaking, during the pandemic, where did you go? The problem we have, church, is that coming out of the pandemic, we think the only thing we have to worry about are vaccines and when we'll open and the economy. But can I submit to you that what we really need to focus on is who's going to deliver a generation that lives for a whole year in their dark place. I'm going to say it again. What we need to be prepared for, church, is how do you help a group of people, a nation, a globe that lived for a year, watch this, trapped in that place they go. Because when you're in the presence of somebody else, it's easy to snap out of it. But when you're quarantined by yourself, have you ever been in the prison of your own dark place? When this time there was nobody and nothing to pull you out. My question, crusade, my question to the refreshing is, where did you go? And have you been trapped there the last year? Have you been trapped there the last few months? Have you been trapped there for years? Most of us, where we go, it's that ominous dark place. It's the dark place. It's the dark place. The dark place refers to the unknown. The dark place is where I wrestle with what I don't know. The dark place is where my anxieties are manifested because I don't know. I don't know when this will turn around. I don't know when a pandemic will end. I don't know if I will ever know the origin of what happened to me. I don't know if this will ever turn around. I don't know what the outcome of this will be. I don't know when they're going to say this or do this. And the darkness is the place where we become captive to what we are ignorant about. The darkness is the place, watch this, where you rehearse what you don't know. That's where the anxiety comes from. The anxiety comes from the fact that in the darkness, I've begun to run in circles what I don't know. The darkness refers to heaviness. The darkness is a place where everything that is heavy sits on you and doesn't allow you a moment of escape. The darkness refers to wickedness. The Bible positions it as the darkness encompasses everything that is against God. And into this conversation about being trapped in a dark place, Paul offers a solution. He says in 2 Corinthians 10 that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. Before he says that, though, he says, even though I am a human being, my fight is not a human fight. Even though I'm living in the world, I understand that my fight is deeper than what I can see. It's deeper than what I can get my hands on. It's deeper than what's happening. It's deeper than what I can see. And Paul says the first thing you have to acknowledge is that the fight is bigger than human flesh. He says, even though I'm a body, I don't fight in my body. I fight a spiritual thing. And he says that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. Can I break this down for you before we go? The weapons of our warfare are not carnal. First of all, in this text, as he reveals to us, how do you deal with a dark place? The first one is he says, you have weapons. 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 Worship, fasting, prayer, reading the word, spending time in community, devotion, stillness, all these things are weapons. And the reason why that's important is because the dark place pushes you to stop seeing the commands of God as chores and start seeing them as defenses. Let me say it again. Before the dark place, I'd be like, God, why do you want me to do this? I don't have an hour to pray. I don't have 30 minutes to pray. The Bible is boring. I don't really want to deal with church. I have other things to do on a Sunday. I have business meetings to put on Sunday. Sunday is my only day to have me time. I have plans. I want to go on vacation. And there is something about comfort that makes you look at what God has given you as a chore. And we say, Lord, I don't have it in me to do X, Y, and Z. But the dark place will help you realize that the reason why God was so bent on you learning how to spend time with him, the reason why God kept inviting you to do the things that you thought were inconveniences was because God knew all along that it is not an inconvenience. It is something that is setting up a defense for you for the darkness that is going to come that you don't know about. So Paul says if you're going to make it, you have to change the way you view what you have. It's not chores, it's my defense. It's not chores, it's my protection. It's not chores, it's my safety. So it goes from I don't feel like it to I can't afford not to. If I don't, you're going to get a version of me that is unlike anything you think is in me. If I don't, I'm not going to have the capacity capacity to deal with what's on my plate. In fact, you don't want me when I'm not prayed up. You don't want me when I haven't spent time with God, because I've seen the worst of what's in Princeton. And so I hit my knees because I realized if I don't do this, I am at my most vulnerable to the darkness. So what happens is we wait until the darkness has become a stronghold to then build a defense. And I'm not, hear me clearly, I'm not pushing vaccine. I just want to use it as a metaphor. The metaphor of a vaccine is that it allows you to be prepared before you get it, so you don't have to get it to be healed from it. So sometimes God says, I'm calling you to a disciplined life because I don't want you to have to die to learn these principles. I don't want life to slay you before you learn the value of prayer. God does not get some kind of sick pleasure of letting you be killed so you'll learn the value of holiness. Because God has the heart of a father, God said, I would rather you learn this before you go through pain. He says, the weapons of our warfare, the weapons, what I've given you is your defense. What I've given you, it is what deposits in you what you, oh God, there it is. Oh Jesus. God says, discipline before the pain will give you stability in the pain. That's what God is trying to do with me. Remember, refreshing, I'm just telling you what I'm dealing with, and I'm sharing with you and hope it blesses you. Discipline before the marriage. Discipline before your promotion. Discipline before that job. Discipline before the house is to help you have stability once you get it. And the problem is we want everything before God has grounded us. And then the darkness meets a vulnerable soul. The darkness meets a soul that does not know it's God. The darkness meets a soul that has had no other preparation for how to deal except to be in it. And Paul says the first thing is, what you have in your hand is a weapon. Can you type it in the comments? What I have in my hand is a weapon. It's not casual. It's not something that's a fly-by-night. It's not an inconvenience. It's not some rule because God is fascinated with me being a rule abider. No, it is a weapon. Oh my God. That's why Jesus, I don't have time. That's why God says, I'm going to reverse. No, bad language. I'm going to enhance what I've done in giving you the law. Before, I wrote it down. The reason why I wrote it down was because that was your first exposure to it. He says, but there will come a time where you won't need it written down because I'm going to write it, watch this, on the tablets of your heart. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because I want to transfer it from being a list of things you do to a list of things you know you need. I'm not doing this to just please God. God's already pleased with Jesus in me. So I don't have anything to prove to God. When God sees me, he sees the sacrifice of Jesus. I'm not doing this to earn points. I'm doing this because I realize this is my defense. I really don't have time. I have gotten to the place where I value everything in my life, but I realize fundamentally the weapons of my warfare is all I really have. I'm appreciative for my degree. It opened some great doors. I love my therapist. I will shout therapy from every mountain I get a chance to. I love what I've done in terms of mental health. I appreciate every book that I've read. I need the community that I have. I'm in a great place of employment, but I've realized that none of that is what keeps me. None of that is what sustains me. None of that is what helps me go crazy. All I heard the hymn writer say, on Christ the solid rock I stand, and all of the ground is sinking sand. He frames it to say, the weapons, what I have. Princeton, move on. The reason why I can't get to a place of fulfillment and development sometimes is just because I'm looking at what I have the wrong way. The problem with miracles is not ability, it's sight. Princeton, you don't have time. Let me say it again. The problem with miracles is not ability, it's sight. How do you know? In the Bible, when Jesus went to go feed the 5,000, he asked the disciples, he said, what do you have? We're going to feed them. They said, all we have. Catch that language. All we have. Can I tell you that God, one of the ways God is going to get you through your dark place is by changing the way you view what you have. God is trying to eliminate the words all and just from your vocabulary. The words all and just are two words keeping you bound. I'm just a hairdresser. That will keep you in the dark place. I'm just a this. That will keep you in the dark place. All I have is blank. That will keep you in the dark place. Because the miracle is not defined by ability. God doesn't need your ability. He's got all the ability. What he needs is, can you still see it? And you know what they said to him? They said, all we have are 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. And they asked one of my favorite questions in the Bible. They said, but what is this among so many? What they said is, I mean, we got it. But what is it compared to how deep the problem is? And Jesus said, that's your problem. It's not your ability. I have the ability. Your problem is you keep looking at things saying it's not enough for the battle. But when you submit it, oh God, and the fact that you think it's not enough is the reason why you won't submit it. You think your dream's not enough. You think your career's not enough. You think your life's not enough. You think you're not enough, and that's why you won't. Oh my God. Insecurity is at the root of most of our disobedience. I said insecurity is at the root of most of our disobedience. This is why the devil attacks you with condemnation. Here's why. Because he doesn't care if you know what your weapons are. He cares whether or not you have faith enough to pick them up. So what he does is he lets you come to church and hear about the weapons, and you hear about worship, and you hear about prayer, and you hear about caring for yourself, and you hear about thinking and taking care of your body. You hear about the gospel and about life care and soul care, but then you start to weigh who you are and who you think you're not. And so even though you know the weapons, you feel like you're not enough to pick up the weapons. The enemy says, that's exactly where I want you, because you have it, but you won't use it because you don't think you're enough to use it. But would you type in the comments and say, it's my weapon, baby, it's my weapon. He gave it to me, it's my weapon. I don't care if I was perfect this week, it's my weapon. I don't care if I had all the right answers, it's my weapon. I don't care if you like me, it's my weapon. I don't care if I fell on Wednesday, it's my weapon. And in fact, the more I get back up from the fall, it's going to be my weapon that keeps me from falling next time. I don't have time to give up. I don't have time to have a pity party, because my weapon belongs to me. It was licensed to me. There's a barcode with my name on it that says Princeton in case of emergency. Don't forget that you yourself, you have a weapon. He says the weapons of our warfare, the things we have for our defense. And then he takes it a step further. He says they are not carnal. Okay? Let's spend time with that word. They are not carnal. Let's break it down in 2 ways. Number 1, they are not carnal. They are not living. You can't touch them. The problem with the dark place is that I want to fight what I can't see using things that I can see. So he told me that the battle is not just in this earth realm, but because I want to walk by sight and not by faith, I want something that I can feel. I want something that I can touch, that I can taste, that provides immediate relief. This is why the drugs have the effect they do. Because I want a solution that I can see to solve a problem that I can't see. That's why sex is such a viable option. It's why sex is so powerful, is because of how many senses it actually impacts. I want to have the escape through sex because that is something I can feel. And I want to use that as the response to what I cannot see. It's why the alcohol is so powerful. because I can feel the bottle. I can taste the bottle. I can taste the effect it has on me, and I can feel that more immediately. Watch this. Submission means I have to delay the gratification of wholeness. Submission means that I might have to actually deal with the dark place. I might actually have to address it, but I don't want to address it. I want to escape it. And so I need weapons that I can feel. But Paul says that the weapons of our warfare are invisible. But he follows them up by saying that they're invisible, but they're not weak. My weapons are invisible, but don't let the fact that it's invisible make you think that an invisible thing can't have a visible impact. Let me slow down. Paul says what you must learn is just because your weapon is invisible doesn't mean it can't have a visible impact. Just because you prayed instead of cussing, it does not mean that your prayer that was seemingly invisible can't have a visible change in your relationship with your brother, your sister, your family member. Just because your weapon is invisible doesn't mean it can't have a visible impact on your career. Just because your weapon is invisible doesn't mean it can't have a visible and tangible impact on your body. Just because your weapon is invisible doesn't mean that you can't use that to let you speak truth to power and cause some visible change. In fact, you better be scared of me when I pull on invisible weapons. You ought to be more nervous when I'm quiet than I am when I'm talking. You better be more nervous when I retreat than when I feel like I'm about to press. You better be more nervous when I go into my secret closet, because that's where the real power is. If I start praying, I'm going to come out with clarity. If I start praying, you're going to mess around and feel convicted. If I start praying, you're not going to like the things you used to like. If I start praying, I'm going to perform even better than I was before. If you hated me when I was mediocre, then you better get out of my way once I'm prayed up, because my best ideas come from when I've spent time in the presence of God. If you think this is something, then you ain't seen nothing yet, because even though my weapons are invisible, the promise is that they still have a visible impact. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal. That means that they, thank you, sweet God, that they are not visible, they are tangible. They are not visible or tangible, but they are invisible. And this is important because you're fighting an invisible fight. So I must fight with a like substance. I must fight with a like energy. Now, let me pause here and say, he says the weapons of our warfare. Now, let me pause and say that I'm preaching this sermon, and I want to be careful with the analogy of warfare, because I want to hold space for those who are triggered and negatively impacted by the war and the terrorism that's going on presently. And so I want to be very, very careful about how I wield this metaphor, because I don't just want to pull spiritual things that in fact trigger certain natural things. We honor and stand with those that are negatively impacted by war. Paul used this analogy, and he says the weapons of our warfare. Okay, what I want to pull out of that is this. I find it interesting because one of the things that happens in the dark place is we say, what's wrong with me that I'm in the dark place? Oh, God. And then one of the things that happens is you feel like it's your fault that you're there. And so you start to say, I can't ask for help. I can't get out of here because it's my fault that I'm in here in the first place. And you start to say, what's wrong with me? But I love the situation that Paul sets up around warfare, because what it means is that there are opposing sides warring or wrestling over something. Watch this. But you don't wrestle over something that you don't see value in. You don't wrestle over something. You don't come into conflict over something. Have you ever been in a situation where somebody tried to start a fight with you over something that didn't matter to you? And so you let them yell. You're like, girl, you can have them earrings. I was about to throw them away anyway. Which one you want? You'd be like, you can have him. Ain't nobody going back to him. I hope y'all have fun. You wrestle over stuff you don't care about, you just release it. But that which you value, you are prepared and ready to go into conflict over. You want to see a parent come undone? Mess with that kid. And I've seen the most peaceable people in life. They don't say nothing. They quiet. You got to watch the quiet ones. I'm just going to put that out there right now. You got to watch the ones that are quiet. Those are the ones that will end your entire life. And they be just as quiet. But when you come against what they value, you'll be like, I didn't even know them 4 people was in you. You feel like, how did I get jumped by one person? All I remember was I said, if you about it, then be about it. Next thing I knew, I had forgotten my name, my age, and my location of birth. So the reason why warfare is important is not because I want to invoke the imagery of violence, but because I want to show you that 2 sides are warring over something that they both see value in. Write this in your notes. The favor of God on you and Satan's attacks against you, both are a sign of the value that's in you. Don't have much time. Let me say it again. The favor and the love and the stamp, oh, let's take it a step deeper, and the identity of God that's on you. Because you are the imago Dei of God, an image bearer. It's not in what you do. He created you in his image, the image of God on you. And the attacks of Satan against you are both signs of the value that's in you. So the reason why the warfare is not because you did anything wrong. It's in fact because there are things in you of value. Would you just confess that over your life? Say, there's something valuable in me. Come on, say it. You haven't said it to yourself in a long time. There's something valuable in me. There's something valuable. The darkness robs you of the way that you view yourself. You gotta say, no, there's something valuable inside of me. That's why there are forces that are competing over where this value is going to go. That's why life and everything around me is trying to challenge what's on the inside of me, because my testimony is valuable. The way I see the world is valuable. My gifts are valuable. The way I talk is valuable. There's something about your story that's going to get more people saved than I ever could. There's something about your testimony that's going to fill this church in a way that Bishop's preaching and Pastor Jerry's preaching and my preaching could never. And you need to stop sleeping on it because you think there's something wrong about it. No, God knew your story before he gave it to you. And the reason why he's let it get to this point is because he understands 2 things. Number 1, he'll be with you no matter where your story turns. And number 2, if you mess around and get agency and control over that thing, you will set some lives in order that would have died had they not heard your story. The reason why I'm struggling, it's not because I'm hurt, it's not because I'm wrong, it's not because I'm dirty, it's because there's something valuable in me. Weapons of our warfare are not carnal, they are not visible, they're not tangible, but they are also not weak. Now watch this, I've got to push. They're mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. Can I teach you just a little while longer? To the pulling down of strongholds. Now, when I was a kid growing up in church, I would shout over that because I was churchy. That was just one of the ones you just respond because it's a church phrase. To the pulling down of strongholds. You just go for broke. You just, and the music, BPM is like at 150, and you just have a fit because that's one of the churchy phrases. And Pastor Jerry, I never knew what a stronghold was until this week. In the words of Bishop, I'm confessing to you right now that I shouted my whole life over something I did not know the meaning of. Let me tell you what I imagined it was, then let me tell you what it is biblically. What I imagined a stronghold was this seat on some bungee cables. Now, why that's what I thought, I don't know, but I'm being honest with you, okay? That ain't what it is. 2 definitions of a stronghold. Number 1, a stronghold. It is a technical term about building a city. Stronghold means that you build something around something to fortify it, watch this, so that nothing can get to the center of it. A stronghold. One of the things I imagine about it that's a really great archaeological example, remember how the Bible described Jericho? That the reason why that miracle was so important was because geographically they built that city where you could not run in it and defeat them. In fact, you couldn't defeat them because the walls were so thick you couldn't get in. You didn't hear me. The point of a stronghold is that the exterior is so thick that you can't defeat it because you can't get in it. So a stronghold are things that the enemy builds around your life and your heart so that nothing can get in it. That's why we can preach at the top of our lungs and it doesn't touch your heart, because I can't get to your heart because of the stronghold. That's a part of the reason why they say that you have to be quote unquote healed to date. I don't believe in that phrase because I think it communicates a negative message. I think what we communicate when we say that is that means you need to be perfect and have it all together. Nobody ever does. In fact, marriage and a relationship, all of it is a reflection of the grace of God. It ain't because you did the perfect thing and you ate kale for 30 days and you read every book and you follow these people on Instagram and all of a sudden God bless you with a husband. No, it's all by grace. So it is not that you have to be perfect, but it is that you have to deal with the stronghold. Watch this. So that you're not in relationships where people can't love you because they can't get to you. You don't have to be perfect, but you do need to deal with the stronghold. Trauma, stronghold. Addictions, stronghold. Negative ways of interacting with people, stronghold. And let me say this. Some of us keep lying and we keep calling strongholds personalities. That's just how I am. No, it's not. It is a stronghold that's been built up over time, and nothing can win with you because nothing can get to you. Can I ask what strongholds have been built in your life? You think that by not talking to that person, you all big and bad, when in actuality, you're just making the stronghold stronger. You think that the attitude that you have with God and with the church and with all these other things are actually showing how strong you are, when in actuality, they're making your stronghold stronger. The first is it's a building metaphor. It is when what is around you is so thick and it is so difficult and it is so forceful and it is so strong that nothing can get to what's inside. Watch this. It's built to keep the wrong things out. But the problem with a stronghold is that if you mess around long enough with a stronghold, it will also keep the right things from coming in. That's what the enemy wants in your dark place. That's when that darkness moves from being a day to a few months, from a day to a season. It's gone from being, it is what the Bible calls at that point a spirit of heaviness. This thing has circled around long enough to become strong around my heart. The second definition of stronghold, so first, it's a building metaphor. It's talking about something that is built on the outside. The second definition of a stronghold, hear me, is an idea. Let me turn the corner. A stronghold is an opinion. It's a belief. It is a belief about yourself, or about God, or about faith, or about life, or about your conditions, watch this, that keeps you from experiencing the health and the fullness of God. You know what that tells me, Bishop? That the dark place, the stronghold, is actually a series of harmful beliefs that have closed up my mind and my heart. The dark place. It's not my marriage. It's not my degree. It's not the weight loss. That's not the dark place. The dark place is that there are strongholds. There are ideas and beliefs and thoughts that have come one by one, and they have built towers in my heart. That's why you feel trapped. That's why you feel separated. Because the thoughts They get together long enough to create something around your heart. They get together long enough to create something around who you are. I don't have time to finish this. Maybe if Bishop will allow, I'll do a part 2 to this. I'm out of time. So let me do this, and then I've got to give you some hope, and then I'll give you the rest of what I have. Watch this. Here's how it happens. Spiritually, right? Now, I don't have time to address this, but we also know the dark place can be formed by chemical imbalances, reminders of trauma, all those things, all right? I want to hold space for that. I believe that there are few people who believe more in the importance of faith and mental health than I do. So I honor those things. I want to center you, though, in the thing we don't talk about enough, which is the warfare you need. What is this on a spiritual level? That's where I'm focusing my energy today. So here's how the dark place is created, because if you know how it's created, you can see it when it's forming. Okay? But the problem is we don't know it until we're in it. We don't know it until days have gone by and we haven't eaten. We don't know it until we start missing stuff. And then we're like, I don't think I'm in a good place. So how does the dark place form? How does the stronghold in my mind form? Here's how. Satan's strategy is simple. Watch this. He talks, and then he uses life events as evidence that he's telling the truth when he's not. Let me play that to you again, and then that's unfortunately all I have time for. Here's how the dark place forms. All Satan comes to do is talk. He doesn't have to do a whole lot. His strategy since the beginning of time has always been, I will talk. And I'll plant ideas and suggestions, watch this, that are the devil's voice, but in your tone. So the hard part is, if you don't know God, and if you aren't aware of how the enemy talks, then you'll think it's you talking to you. You'll think it's you saying that you ain't nothing. You'll think it's you saying, if I could, I would hurt her. You think that's you. You think that's the byproduct of just your own imagination or your own lust. This is how it happens. So first, Satan's going to come and just throw an idea, a suggestion, a conversation. You do know that you will never, ever, ever amount to anything, right? Ooh, let me come closer to home. Here's one. It's going to be a little uncomfortable. But many of us who have dealt with past trauma, we go into spaces looking for confirmation that people don't like us. So you'll go into a space. Simple. Satan says, you see how she looked at you? I'm just putting you on guard right now that she's one of them ones that don't care about you. So then, that's the lie. But in order to make it a truth, he has to supplement it with life experience. What he said was a lie. So he's now got to pick up something that is true to supplement what he said that's a lie. So what happens is he says, look at the way she just looked at you. She don't like you. Meanwhile, she wasn't even looking at you. She was yawning. But something about the way she yawned triggered you. So what he does, because you know in real life that's a lie, what he does is he says, hey, at your last church, that's how so-and-so looked at you. And she didn't like you. So this that happened is true. Watch the, oh God. One of the greatest tricks that the enemy's using in our generation is to use valid emotions to make you come to untrue conclusions. Our generation, we don't know where that line is. We think that just because I felt it, it creates a truth. But there's a separation. Your feelings and emotions can be valid, and it still not make a proper statement about what you're dealing with right now. It is absolutely true that they did you wrong in that last season. But in this season, it does not mean that every woman who you deal with doesn't want to be your sister. Okay. So, let me finish talking you through this. It's simple. He talks. He says something. And then he'll take a life event. Remember this, see this, watch this, do this, etc. And then he'll start. You know your record. He'll say, God will never love you. That's a lie. But then he'll be like, look at all the wrong you did. It's true. I did do that wrong. So maybe it's not a lie. Maybe God will never love me. You know they prefer your siblings over you. You know that place will never see you. You know that place. And even though at onset, it'd be like, where did that even come from? When you sit and think about it, he starts offering life experiences. And you go, well, I do remember that one time that such and such and such and such happened. So here's how it happens. He plants an idea. And then he introduces a little pain for that idea to take root. Because here's the thing. When you're not hurt, you don't be fooling with stupid stuff. When you're at your best, folks will say something, you'll be like, you must be stupid. That is dumb. But there's something about being tired. There's something about feeling forgotten. There's something about feeling rejected. There's something about feeling overwhelmed with no support. There's something about feeling lost. There's something about feeling guilty that all of a sudden you start entertaining stuff that you wouldn't. So first is he plants an idea. The second is then he introduces some pain. So then the third is he comes back and confirms the idea. Then the idea plus the pain become overwhelming. So here's our response. We self-isolate. Now that we're by ourselves, we ain't talking to nobody, we ain't doing nothing, we ain't open about it. Now the idea gets louder because now it doesn't have any other things or voices to compete with. This is why the enemy loves to isolate people from the church, because now you don't have any space to bounce his ideas off of. When you're in community, that stuff has a filter. It's in your head, but you get to temper it with other people. When you're isolated, there's nothing for you to bounce that thought off of, so it seems like the only thought. So we self-isolate, the idea gets louder, and then Satan suggests how I should deal with the dark place. Because that's what he was after all along. It wasn't the dark place, it was what he could convince you to do in response to the darkness. Now I can introduce you killing yourself. Now I can introduce you giving up that position. Now I can introduce you not having your space in that family because you've been in this dark place long enough. So then I respond to Satan's suggested method of handling the pain. You know what? I think I will get high again. Satan, that sounds like a great idea. I will go ahead and push through all these things. And watch this. The result is that then the action leads me to more pain. And that's how the dark place becomes a stronghold. Okay, close your Bibles, close your notes. That's all I have time for today. This has been really heavy. I have so much more to give you. There's so much more in this text that I'll unpack, but I've got to release it. Let me say this to you, because I don't preach to you without a compass towards hope. If there's not a compass towards hope, then it's not the gospel. Anybody can diagnose a problem. The gospel always points you towards a solution. So, if I ever get the chance again, I will help you understand what the solution is once you understand that you're there. Because there's some tangible things I want you to take away. But the hope I want to leave you with today is I want to correct the biggest of all of Satan's lies. If I do that, we'll be good today, and we can all go to brunch. Here's the biggest lie. The biggest lie Satan tries to tell you is that you will have to live in that dark place. You'll have to live there because you're the only one going through it. You'll have to live there because nobody really cares about the fact that you are there. You'll have to live there because you deserve to be there. And you know what his best lie is? You'll die in the dark place. But lift your hands right now. I've come as a messenger of God to prophesy over your life. I don't care what the devil said. You will not die in the dark place. I'll give you the rest of what I got later. But what God needed to give you today is that it will not consume you. It will not steal your future. It will not steal your hope. Here's why. Because Jesus said that the enemy comes to steal, kill, and to destroy. The enemy comes to perpetuate darkness. But my purpose and my power is different. I have come that you might have life. Can you just receive that you will live? You will not die in the darkness. A word for your darkness is that it is not the only place you can live. And it won't take you out. Come on, worship team. I'm so sorry I'm taking so much time. So much word in that. I want to pray for you. Because you think that you're the only one who in the pandemic was left with some real dark thoughts, some strongholds about your life and your past and who you are and who you're not. Refresher, you're not alone. I've been there. Don't let my preaching fool you. Don't let my singing fool you. Behind this microphone has been some dark places. You know what mine sounds like? It sounds like you know that none of this is real, right? You know that they can see through you. You know that none of this matters, right? You know that you barely believe what you're saying, and yet you scream louder trying to make people believe what you yourself struggle to believe. So why are you even preaching? If you don't believe it, then why are you talking to them? Is that why you yell so loud? Because you're trying to put into them what you don't believe yourself? They'll know the truth in time. Dark place sounds like, death is a better option. Nobody will miss you. It's simple. It's simple. Push the car up to 85 and then just let it go to the right. Dark place sounds like God didn't call you. He couldn't have. Dark place, you know, they know that because you're young, you ain't never somebody they'll respect. You can't lead, you're too disorganized. You can't lead, you don't have enough wisdom, you don't have enough life. You can barely lead yourself. How can you lead them? But I've come to let you know that the dark place does not have rulership over what God has said. And it's dark, but I can't live there. Bishop, it's dark, but I can't live there. We talk about this all the time. It's dark, but I can't live. Minister Michelle, I can't because if I live there, it'll kill me before I see what God wants to do with me. If I live there, I'll take myself out when there are people who don't see me the way I see myself. I can't live there because that God still has a plan. I can't live here because the weapons of our warfare, not my identity, not my individuality, not my creativity, but the weapons of my warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty through God. I'm gone. Bye, y'all. Let me pray for you. I don't know what your dark place sounds like. I don't know if it's the place where your stronghold brings up your childhood, if it brings up your body image, your weight. I don't know if it brings up your record. I don't know if it brings up what you did with who. I don't know if it brings up the mess you did. I don't know. I don't know what your dark place sounds like. But I pull you. I pull you. By the Spirit of grace, I pull you. I pull you. I pull you out. I pull you out, first of all, by letting you know that you're not alone. I pull you out by letting you know that we're not ignorant of Satan's devices, but we see him. And seeing him is the first step to defeating him. Calling him out is the first step to driving him away. Calling him out is the first step to resisting him. Satan, we declare that you will not have your dark hold over the people of God. You will not have it over the refreshing. You will not have it over the ushers. You will not have it over the tech team. You will not even have it over our senior leaders. You will not have it over our intercessory team. But we will go into this year and the next with understanding that you are the light of the world, that you light up spaces that used to feel like there was no way out, and you are the one who breaks the stronghold. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. Come on, get ready for communion, team.